Hello, welcome back to GAM218. In this lecture, we're going to take a look at the matinee system inside of Unreal, and we're going to do some very, very basic matinee. We're just going to access the movement track that allows us to move things over time. Matinee is kind of the big cutscene editor. It's got lots of things that it can do, but we're going to start very simple. We're going to start with some easy stuff that we know you can take care of and we can do in this one lecture, and then over time we'll build on top of that and keep adding on to it. And then we're going to look at how we can use Blueprint to tell matinee to play. So as our matinee gets set up, our matinee will control the movement of a door, and we'll use our Blueprint to tell that matinee when to open that door, when to play. Our tutorial goal, what we're going to do kind of in tutorial format, is we're just going to create a lockable sliding door. Basically, there's a door that has a Boolean variable of is locked, whether it's locked or not. We created this in the last lecture. And then when the player approaches this door, it's either going to say locked because the door's locked, or we're going to have it play the matinee and open that door. So we're going to go very simple, very small, just do one little thing at a time. And then as we work, we'll continue to build and build and build. And by the time we get to the end of this course, you'll have a bunch of tools you can use to make some really interesting levels. So again, I'm going to start off from where we left off last time. So here's our level. We've still got our tutorial text from 3 lectures back. We've got our little trigger here. And so this trigger is in front of a cube. This cube represents our sliding door. That's what's going to move out of the way when it comes time to play. And this trigger is what's going to activate the matinee system that tells that door to move. Now, one of the things about matinee that we need to realize is that matinee is very literal in where it's telling things to be and how to move. So if I were to create a matinee with this door in this location and then move it sideways, it would always start in this exact location and move to where I want it to move to, even if I were to move this door to another spot. So I would need a separate matinee for each door because it's not relative to its current position. It's not like it's saying start where you are now and move over to the right of where you are now. It's going to say start in this exact position in the level, right here in this exact spot, and move to a new exact spot inside of the level. So we want to make sure that our starting position is set up perfectly where we want it before we create our matinees, and then we need to make sure that everything stays where we want them for our matinees, or we're going to have to redo all of our matinee. What that should have you keeping in mind is when you go to build matinees for your levels, they're kind of going to want to be some of the last things that you do. When we get to the end of the course or closer to the end, we're going to look at using timeline variables or timeline nodes instead of matinee. So we'll phase out matinee. That timeline system is much easier to be relative to positions. So if you want a door to open from where it is, or if you want to have an elevator move up from its current location to where the second floor above it would be, rather than moving from one exact spot to another exact spot, that's going to be something we're going to do more with timeline in the future. But we're starting simple. We're getting into matinee. We're going to get this done really easy here today. So we're going to make sure that this door is in its starting position before we go anywhere. So now that my door is exactly where I want it to be, if you need to pause and move yours, you should do that now. And my trigger is where I want it to be. I'm going to add a matinee system so that we can start adding on and editing inside of this. So I'm going to come up to this cinematics, and I'm going to go down to add matinee. All right, so here we go. This is a matinee window. It's got tons of information, lots of things that we can go into. We're going to take it simple. We're going to do just a little bit at a time, slowly add on and add all of this other information. If you want to jump ahead and go look up other tutorials on matinee, Unreal has some amazing tutorials on their site on how to use matinee, so you want to take a look at that. There's a lot on YouTube that you can look at. For now, we're playing it simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the curve editor. We don't need that for now, so I'm going to hide it, give us more space here with our tracks. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and close this matinee window altogether to start with, and we'll take a look on what happened inside of the world when we added this. So inside of our game, we have this matinee actor. By default, it's got this name, matinee actor. Again, that's a very generic name. It's not the kind of thing that we want to call our matinee actor. So I'm going to call it matinee actor underscore sliding door. That way I know that it's related to the sliding door that I'm creating. In fact, if I call it sliding door underscore matinee actor, we'll find that that alphabetically lines it up next to our sliding door. So there's our sliding door matinee actor. All right. So when we did that, it created this matinee actor, which is now called sliding door matinee actor. And so this object is just an actor that exists inside of the world that holds all of our matinee information. If we need to change information about it, like how fast it plays, whether it plays automatically, when do you want it to rewind after it's done playing, whether or not it's going to be hidden in the game or we're going to see it. So those kind of things are all different settings we can set. And then we're going to click here to open matinee so that we can see the additions. And we're going to start working on our matinee. So one of the things that you'll notice here is that my matinee window takes up the full screen just so that we can see everything. But most of the time you're going to want to work with matinee as a window, as less than full screen, because you're going to want to select items inside of the world outliner for use inside of matinee. So you're probably going to be jumping back and forth between these two windows quite a bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the items that we want this matinee to control. So matinee is like a cutscene. It's an animation. It's a set of things. So we need to select what we want to have animated. So I'm going to select the sliding door because that's the only thing right now that my matinee is going to control. With the sliding door selected, I'm going to come down to this area under tracks. I'm going to right click and I'm going to add a new empty group. It's kind of a misnomer to say empty group. The group itself has the actors that we have selected. So with my sliding door selected inside of my world outliner, it's going to be affecting that sliding door. But how it affects it, is it going to change its position? Is it going to change variables? Is it going to change lighting? That information on how it changes it is empty. It doesn't have anything that it's going to change. So that's what it means by a new empty group. So add new empty group. I give it a new name. I'm going to call it sliding door. And that gives us this piece of information, this block here inside of our matinee. With this block, I can right click on the block and I can add a new track. I'm going to add a movement track. So these are all different things that we can have change over time. So a matinee is an animation, which is changing something over time. So we can think about how we want our selected item, which in this case is the sliding door, to change over time. Do we want it to change its color? Do we want it to change a vector, a variable inside of it? Do we want it to change which animation it's playing in a 3D model animation? Do we want to change a float property, a variable that's a float inside of there? Those kind of things. So what we want to do is we want to change the movement. We want to move our object over time. So we're going to add a new movement track. Here's our movement track, and here's our setup. So our movement track is set up for our sliding door. And under here, this is our timeline. So this is going to be a point in which our things are changing. So I'm going to start at 0, and I'm going to make sure I add a key. So we have a keyframe at 0. So now there's one keyframe at 0 seconds. Then I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to select the point as to how long I want it to take to open the door. So I'm going to go all the way up to 1 second here. And in fact, I can drag this out. Let me see. Yeah, let's go to 1 second. Let's have it take a second to open the door. So here's where I can change where I'm going to snap to, and this is whether or not I'm going to toggle the snap. So I'm going to leave my snap at 0.5, and I'm going to turn my snap on, and that way When this lets go, it's going to kind of try to snap to those points. Oh, that's in my curves. So once I've got my timeline set up as to where I want to access in that time, so I'm trying to get as close to 1 second as possible, I'm going to add another key. And so now that I have the second keyframe, I'm going to have that keyframe selected, and I'm going to move my door to the position I want it to be at that point in time. So there's my door all the way open. So now I'll notice that if I take and I drag across my timeline, I can see my door move as it goes to that location. If I hit play, I'll see the door open. So now I get a good idea of how this is going to look through my matinee. If I needed other keyframes, if I wanted something strange to happen, like if I'm here in the middle and I say, hey, I'm going to add a keyframe where it goes up. Now I've got this weird door goes up as it moves. I don't want that. I'm going to right click and delete that keyframe. I just want my door to go side to side. So you can take some time to play with Matinee, see what it's like to set up keyframes, to move things around, to change this movement track. Right now we just have a movement track, so it's only going to affect position rotation of our object. So it's only going to allow us to move it around and rotate it. We're not going to be able to change a lot of other stuff with it inside this Matinee. So we're going very basic. But take some time to play with the Matinee and make your door open and get that set up. When you're done playing with Matinee, you can unpause, make sure that this is closed out. And now we have a Matinee actor set up, and that Matinee, when played, will open the door. So if I play my level right now, nothing happens because nothing is telling that that Matinee to play. If I were to select my Matinee actor, so here's my sliding door Matinee actor, I can tell it to play on level load. Here when I play, it's going to run as soon as my level starts. So the door opens as soon as my level begins. That's not what I want. We want it to play as soon as we step in that trigger. So we're going to look at editing that blueprint to make it happen. So I'm going to select my trigger. Here's my BP lockable door. I'm going to edit the blueprint by opening the blueprint editor. And we're going to take a look at changing what happens when the player steps in the trigger. So here's our begin overlap. This happens whenever our player steps in the trigger. It's going to branch based on whether or not it's locked. If it's locked, it's going to print the string locked up to the window. If it's not locked, it's going to print open sesame. Well, I don't want that anymore, so I'm going to delete that. And instead, if it's false, I'm going to play a Matinee. So I'm going to look for Matinee. I want to turn context sensitive off because it's going to be looking under Matinee actor. And I'm going to get it to play the Matinee. So Matinee play. So here we go. So we'll notice that it's actually under cinematic inside of this possible actions. So it says cinematic play, but this target is going to be a Matinee actor that is going to play. So we're going to need to tell it which Matinee actor we want to have play. So again, I could create the variable of type Matinee actor, set everything up over there, or I can do the shortcut method where I right click, promote this to variable. That creates me a new variable 0, which I'm going to call Matinee open door. The variable type is Matinee actor because that's what it needs to play. It's going to be editable, And I'm going to say this is the matinee of the door opening. I'm going to compile and save. And if I come back here and I have my trigger selected inside of the game, now under my default it says matinee open door. I can select which matinee I want to play. That's going to be my sliding door matinee actor. I select that, and now this matinee will play whenever I step in the trigger and it's unlocked. So I'm going to make sure that my door is not locked. So is it locked? Check is false. It's not locked. I'm going to save and play. So now when I enter that trigger, the door opens. In our next lecture, we're going to add some additional functionality to this door. So we're going to look at being able to change that lock as to whether or not it's locked inside of the game, so that we're not just setting it up inside of the level. We're going to be able to actually like walk over to a certain location and lock and unlock the door. We're going to start looking in future lectures on how to read key presses so that we can press the E key to open the door, to unlock the door. And we'll look at how to create pickup keys that we can pick up and move around. So look forward to these in the next few lectures, and I'll see you next class.